much. I'm sure everybody has a lot of questions and thoughts, but we will first hear our two distinguished respondents. The first will be Dr. Ofra Bloch, who is an assistant professor at Tel Aviv University, Faculty of Law. Her areas of research and teaching include history and theory of constitutional law, administrative law, and anti-discrimination law, with a focus on questions of inequality and political economy.
It's going to be weird because I want to be talking to you. So I'm very excited to have the opportunity to comment today for two reasons that I do want to share. First, because I've known you for a long time, or at least for me it's a long time. Professor Post was my First Amendment professor at Yale, but more than that, a kind mentor that read and thoughtfully commented on the different things I've written. So it's exciting for me to have you here at Tel Aviv. And second, because, and let me take you a little bit behind the scenes of organizing this event. When I heard you were coming here, I immediately started thinking I must have you talk about democracy and about the crisis we're facing here in Israel. And while thinking that, I already had in my inbox an email from Professor Post saying, how about this little piece for a second talk? It's short and radical. Well, and I thought it was just perfect because even though much like Professor Post, it seems very American in first sight, it actually speaks, I think, to the Israeli situation and to other polities that face this moment of history of deep polarization and democratic crisis. And let me get right into it. And it's a fun paper. It starts as what one might think a defense, or what I thought to begin with, a defense of cancel culture, only to come to the major twist of this deep deconstruction of First Amendment principle, a contextualization of it that tells us that we, and here I say we because I don't think it's endemic to the US again, don't think about our crisis of polarization maybe in the right terms. It's a crisis, as you said, of a political community, a demos that stops imagining a future together or a destiny. And without further explaining your argument, because you already did it, I'll get to the questions. I have 3 of them. So my first question was indeed triggered by the so-called cancel culture, but as you'll see, I'm actually worried about something else, and that's the truth. And it goes as follows. When, and you touched a little bit on that now while talking, but I think maybe we can do more. When, if ever, would it be a right thing to suppress speech, right? So some polities and theorists tell us that it's a right thing to suppress speech when it threatens or suppresses the speech of other people, right? And I already know from reading this paper that I didn't give you enough to answer this question. I need to give you context. And the context, if I were to speak about the university that you spoke some about, it would be relatively easy, right? I would think about the function of the university, whether it's educational, and then it might be not a good idea to shut a judge that is coming to talk at my university down just because it's racist and a bigot, because it's not a good way to educate people. But our focus, and your focus in the paper, is not the university, but this public sphere, and there I think it becomes more complicated because the function is less clear, especially when I'm not worried so much about racist or unpleasant, triggering speech, and I'm thinking more about the truth and how we figure that out in our public sphere. In this world that is post-truth and, as using your words from yesterday, losing its grip on its epistemological authority. So that's the first question. I think I'm escalating with it, or becoming more complex, I think. The second question has to do with the demarcation of the spheres. So, and it's connected to the first one. So let's say I'm with you, and each sphere has its own context and function that I should follow in order to know how to structure the free speech contextual principle. How do I tell the spheres apart? How do I tell the scientific sphere, the sphere of the expertise from the public sphere? And it becomes especially, I think, urgent question in these days of populist attack on expertise. So just to give two examples that I think show why this is a complicated question. So COVID and vaccinations, I have the intuitions that I would want, of course, scientists to have the authority in that sense, but it's not really the scientists that make any of these decisions. These are public officials that choose to listen or not to listen to the public officials, as we have learned so well during COVID. And then I think even a more complicated example is where we are at now in Israel. What happens when we fight about what's the meaning of democracy and who gets to say that? So right now in Israel we're facing this huge crisis, as we all know, that both sides think they know the one true meaning of democracy. And we as legal scholars, many of the people here, very quickly started organizing together and producing what we thought is expert knowledge about what the true and real meaning of democracy. But really, should we have a stronger say in what democracy is than other people? I'm not sure. It becomes more complicated, I think. And to make this question even trickier, I wanted to hear from you, what do you think, how it plays out institutionally? Because we have, traditionally we think about these ideal types of bureaucracy that is responsive to expertise, and the legislator that is supposed to be more responsive or even controlled by the will of the people, not limited at all by expertise. But we know that this separation is also not so neat, and we have all sorts of ways that the legislator and the bureaucracy interact and are not separated clearly. And to my third question, that I think you're going to get more from Professor Medina, from people in the audience. So let's say we're all with you, we're talking about public discourse, we're not talking about free speech, and how can we make it better? You ended there. And I know you intentionally stopped the paper with other, but I want to stress my question, because you said in your paper that those excluded from public discourse have little incentive to abide by the rules of the political game. And I think we're already there. I know that when you wrote it, you had the US in mind, but I think it's easy to tell the Israeli story through these lenses. So the 1990s, the constitutional revolution as an elitist transformation that over time left some groups outside of the political game unheard, and these groups now trying to throw a counter-revolution, a populist one, authoritarian one, depends who you ask. Of course, this is an oversimplification. It doesn't do justice to either side of the story, but it's only meant to demonstrate how we're already in this place that we're unable to talk to each other. The only thing I could come up with is a big war, a common enemy, like a Great Depression or something that makes us all come together. But then I thought this is also not possible in the time of populist leaders, because they use every crisis, even COVID, to draw us further apart, to draw an us and a them. And especially in Israel, and you just now mentioned the flag, the flag is also, Israeli flag is also excludes some groups. So it becomes even more complicated. So just to review, fun paper, very thought-provoking, 3 questions. When, if ever, should we restrict free speech in the public sphere? How to demarcate the spheres? And third, how we make public discourse better under populist leaders. Thank you.
Thank you